Thank you, Chancellor. A question for you on your scheme. A big scheme, but you can't get the money until June. You're telling people that they can apply for universal credit, but there's a 5 week wait for the first payment. Can you guarantee to people watching this who are in immediate and desperate need that if they apply for universal credit, that they will get an advance payment in 10 days or less to tide them over? And a question, if I may, to the Deputy CMO, how many NHS staff are currently unable to work because they are unwell or self-isolating? It's obviously an area of huge concern for everyone. Thank you.
Beth, to your question about people's immediate cash flow needs, to which of course we're enormously sympathetic to, we've done a couple of things with regard to universal credit. First, making it just more accessible, particularly for those who are self-employed, and more generous in that regard overall, in terms of the measures I've already announced. But in terms of speed, it is already the case, and the Department for Work and Pensions are highly focused on this, that people can get an advance payment almost immediately after the claim. So they do not have to wait for the 5 weeks. An advance payment can be given almost immediately, certainly within days. That's very much what they are already doing. On top of that, we have deployed extra resources into local authorities, particularly to help those who are most vulnerable with things like their council tax bill, which for many families is a very large bill that they face every month. And so local authorities now are in receipt of the extra money we've given them, and they can work in their own communities to identify those most vulnerable families that you've talked about and ensure they get a little bit of extra help to help tide through the difficult few weeks and months ahead.
Thank you. So I don't have the precise figure with me this afternoon in relation to NHS staffing, but I'm sure my NHS colleagues would do. I think the important thing is I do recognise that there are a significant number of staff who are absolutely doing the right thing, as the rest of the public are, in taking themselves out of the workforce if they are symptomatic, and maintaining the safety for the rest of the public, but particularly the vulnerable patients. And I think we have to recognise and support that. The two things we have been doing to try and improve that as we go forward, that is the right thing to do, but we can help everybody, I think. Number one, to be clear on what the workplace guidance is, and there is some very helpful guidance through the NHS, but particularly for people with in the vulnerable group, if you like, with underlying conditions. I think some people have interpreted that if they're healthy and well but have an underlying condition as perhaps needing to stay right out of the workforce. But for some of those people, it will be appropriate for them to work, but on an individual discussion with their workplace. And then I think the other issue, obviously, is I know you'll be aware we are trying to push forward on our testing programme, but right at the top of that list are the healthcare workers and our care workers more generally, and the frontline responders, for example, in police and other first-line response systems. And that's because we recognise that knowing whether people have had the disease or not brings people back into the workplace now, but it also means we know what our resilience is going forward as we move into the depths, really, of the epidemic. So it's for all of us to do that, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Can I turn next to Robert Peston from ITV?